What's going on, everybody? Listen, I got the top five things that gospel musicians don't want you to know. That's right, there are things that gospel musicians actually don't want you to know. This list really isn't in any particular order, but we can go ahead and jump into it because a lot of musicians are trying to learn this music, and they're wondering why they're not sounding like everybody else and why they're not as successful as everybody else and not getting the same opportunities. And we're gonna cover all of that. So let's jump into it. So the first thing is they aren't telling you the truth about the chords that they are using. What do I mean by that? So if you ask them to show you a chord, we've all been there before. Oh man, what's up, Doc? Show me this chord that you used when you was doing that praise break, when you was doing that offering groove. Show me that chord that you use. Okay. So they may show you something like this, right? They be like, yeah, that's all it was. It was just a 2/6. But you wonder, so you go home and you practice this 2/6, and you wonder why it doesn't sound like theirs. But in reality, theirs has more notes. Theirs had way more notes. And another thing that they're not telling you is these grace notes. See, that's the same chord like 3 different times. 1, 2, 3. Same chord, and I'm just gracing. I'm just gracing. All based off of this chord. The chord that they showed you, kind of showed you anyway, sort of based off of that. And they're leaving you hanging. And a lot of people are, you're learning these progressions, and, you're learning these 3, 6, 2, 5, 1s, but you're learning partial chords, or you're not learning these full chords, or the things that can make it fuller, or you're not learning how to grace into certain things. And it's really setting you apart audibly from these better musicians. So, and that's something I want you to know, because they look at that as, oh, that's my style. All right. So let's jump into the second thing that gospel musicians don't want you to know. So the second thing is gospel musicians don't want you to know that you're not asking the right questions. So you're asking, okay, what is this chord, right? That's like the number one question that you can ask. What was that chord that you used? And they may tell you, I can think of an example. They may tell you, oh, I used this chord right here. So I used this chord right here. And once again, I did the grace note, but they might not even show you the grace note. So you playing the progression. Right? And the chord was, so you got the chord, and they don't mind giving you that because you don't have the context. So all you'll ever be able to use that chord for is that one progression in that one particular instance, going to that one chord. That you'll know, okay, when I go to this 6, I can use that. But they're not telling you, because they know you're not asking these questions. They're not telling you, oh, why does it work like that? Why did I choose that? What else can go there? What is that chord? We're not asking that a whole lot of the times. We're not even asking, well, what is this chord that we ended up using? Which, if we bring this over here, that doubles up. We see that this is just it's just really a major chord, and you add a flat 2. That's really, and you're adding this is just dissonance. You can also look at it as in this particular instance it works because it's more of this diminished and you adding this A for dissonance. So it's more of a B flat diminished with an A for dissonance. And if I bring this over, but more importantly than that, they know you're not asking these questions, and they're giving you this chord, and every time you're sounding mundane, because now every time a progression takes you to this 6, you're using that same thing, you know, and you don't know why it works, which conveniently brings me to point number 3 of what gospel musicians don't want you to know, what they're not telling you. Most of the time, they don't know the theory behind what they're doing. They don't even know. And this is not for everybody. It's a lot of great piano players out there in the gospel music industry, or just, doing their thing locally every Sunday. They know exactly what they're doing. But it's a heck of a lot more that don't know what they're doing. This is really few far in between. So what do I mean by that? In this same instance, right? So I gave you that, but I didn't tell you, even if I told you what this is, right? I'm not telling you why it works. I'm not telling you where else you can use it, For example, it works because it's a chromatic movement in more than one ways. First of all, it's a substitution for the 3 in this tritone. All right. It's a substitution for the 3. And here in your right hand, there's a chromatic motion going from A major to A flat major. And that's what's creating, that duality is creating a very smooth sound. And if you understand that, then you know, oh wow, so I can also use that on other minor chords. So I can say, right, and then even along with that, you can say, okay, since this is just it's the chromatic movement that's creating the dissonance. What if I do the chromatic movement the other way? What if I add this to a 7-3-6? A lot of people don't know the theory behind what they're doing. And here's the bigger point, you guys. A lot of these people in this gospel music industry are memorizing progressions, and you're thinking that it's hot, and a lot of this stuff is hot, but you're thinking that it's hotter than it really is. You're thinking that they know more than what they really do, and they're showing you, for example, if you're playing a song such as like How Great Is Our God, and you're trying to get back to the 1 chord, right? So you might be like, oh, what was that? And you'll learn it. You'll sit there and you'll learn. You'll spend hours and hours and hours and hours learning. You'll sit there and you'll spend hours and hours and hours learning that, which is fine. You gotta learn it somehow, but you don't know why you're doing it. You don't know what it really is. You don't know that it's and neither do they know that it's a substitution for a 3-6-2-5-1, but it's just negative harmony. So you don't know this is a substitution for your 3, 6, 2, 5, one. And once you find that out, you can say, oh, okay. So I got 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. You can start connecting pieces on that. You can go from 3. You can change up the chords behind it. You might say something like, you know, you know. So, I mean, they don't know this, so they can't teach you this. And it's a shame because so often in the gospel music genre and in this church scene, you end up with a lot of gigs and you're around a lot of hype men and they hype these chords up and you're like, oh, that's everything I need right there. I'm straight. And you get stuck in an area because the people around where you're from, you know, they've already crowned you king of music, and now you go somewhere else. You go off to college somewhere, or you go off, you get a gig, or you move off to the other side of the United States or whatever, and people are doing that, and more people are doing that in their left hand, you know, and it just really leaves you hanging. But once again, it goes back to, you know, you're not asking the right questions. But another problem is they can't tell you. And a lot of these musicians out here as well, they're still transposing. And I'm not talking about the beginners because you have to learn. You know, I think that personally, I think that you should only transpose for about a year when you're just starting. And then after that, you need to begin to push yourself. But I can understand 2 years because everybody doesn't have the same amount of time to practice. But when it becomes, you know, when you're 4 years deep, 6 years, 8 years, 15 years deep, and you're transposing, you're selling yourself short. And a lot of these gospel musicians are doing it. And it's a lot of the ones that you don't expect. A lot of the musicians that can play in every key, you know, they're still transposing. Just because they tell you they can play in every key doesn't mean they're not transposing. That just means that they can play in every key. They just can't do it fluently. And when it comes down to certain songs that come on Sundays, certain praise break riffs, certain melodies or what have you, certain grooves, they feel more comfortable doing these grooves in A flat. They feel more comfortable doing them in B flat, and they rather not, you know, they rather not, you know, go in D, you know, or they rather not, you know, go in E. You know, or F. You know, but you know they'll, instead of, if the praise break breaks out, you know, instead of, you know, just playing it in F or whatever, you know, they'll switch it over to when the praise break comes out, instead of playing it in F or G or whatever or E, uh, they'll play it in A. A lot of times they'll start off in one key and then they'll go ahead and bump it up real quick. They'll go ahead and modulate it up real quick and cover themselves with that. So I know that was a long, but that's a big deal out here. And it kind of brings me to the next one. So the next one is, they didn't get these gigs off of skill alone, because I just showed you a lot of the flaws in these musicians. So it's like, well, if they're so flawed, how are they getting all these gigs? How are they getting all these opportunities? How are they getting all of this exposure? Well, first of all, they're showing off what they know, and they're putting their best foot forward, which you should always do as a gospel musician or any musician or anything in life. You should put your best foot forward. But second of all, these people know people. and that's life. You have to know somebody to get in certain places and to get certain opportunities. Even me alone, I've gotten certain opportunities where I didn't even have to audition, and they didn't know if I could play um, keyboard versus you know you know anything. They didn't know if I could play keyboard at all, and I've gotten opportunities because such and such told them, oh yeah, he can play, and I'm getting a call, hey, come play for us, come play for this wedding, and it's like y'all have never heard me play, and that's just part of being blessed. But what you don't understand is a lot of these gospel musicians put themselves in the positions uh, to put themselves in good positions by investing their time not only into their craft physically as a musician, but also physically as a business person. They've networked. They've been around people. They've played for free over and over and over again. They've been around the best or been around people that were where they wanted to be and put themselves in positions to succeed and get notoriety. And eventually their name kept being brought up. Oh, I recognize you. Oh, I've seen you before. And people start to, associate you with people of good standing. And then you're able to get into some good positions over people that they can do more than you, but you've you've done your time, and now you're in the position to show off what you have and to um, make money off of your gift and your hard work and your time. But that conveniently brings me to the last point, and the final thing that gospel musicians don't want you to know is that the pay can be iffy. It can be quite iffy. And what I mean by that is that if it's not self-explanatory enough, you're an independent contractor, and you set your prices. A lot of times you can ask gospel musicians, or any musician, what do they make, and most of the time they're gonna tell you their best pay. Most of the time they're not gonna sit there and tell you, uh, "Oh, I got $15 for this one." I just got the gas money for this one, or I got $35 in a meal. Um, but sometimes, depending on your area, it can really be like that, and it takes a lot of that in order to rise up on the ranks, because unless you just smashing, which that can be hard to do. You can't just come out demanding 250, 500 a night. You can't even come out demanding 75 a night. If you're not acclimated and if you're not smashing enough, or if you're not blazing or whatnot. Because it's not always about how good you are. A lot of times it's about how well you mesh with the service or the crowd or the band or the group. Man, they care less about your tritones and your negative harmony and your 2 5 1s and any of that. They could honestly care less. All they need is somebody that can give them a melody and they'll be all right. They some piano players are getting paid and they're not even playing chords, and they're playing melodies with horn sounds, and they're getting paid better than some piano players that have sat there and mastered their craft, but want to play all over top of people or want to implement their ideas at the wrong time. And because of this, like I said, your pay can be really iffy. You just have to make sure that you're putting yourself in the best position. And for those of us that saved, you really need to have, your faith in God, and you need to be praying about these things. You need to use your better judgment. You can't always base a gig off of money. But what I can tell you is that it's the $15 gigs and the free gigs that put you in a position to meet some people that can give you a $500 gig with hotel stays and car rides and eating and things like that. I mean, truly. Um, but here's something else they're not telling you. A lot of times you have to sacrifice a whole lot in order to really have that type of life. If you want, you know, the high paying gigs, um, and most people we play for churches. That's gonna have to come last. It's a shame, and I know people like myself. That's not always something you're willing to sacrifice, just for money. But a lot of times, that's okay. Well, sure you can. We'll pay you this. Um, but you need to be a rehearsal at this time, and they may conflict, and it ain't no moving rehearsal around your schedule. You're being contracted, and it's like, okay, and we're gonna need you for this whole weekend, and we're gonna need you for these dates. But we got you, and they probably do have you, but you're not gonna take a plane ride home just to go play at your service real quick and come back. Um, but you know, if you invest yourself enough, if you network, you can put yourself in a good position, and that's real. You really can put yourself in a good position, but you really, really have to understand sacrifice, and you have to understand it's not just gonna come like this. You really are gonna have to put some work in, and really find a way to set yourself apart. And don't be like typical gospel musicians. You know, go the extra mile. Just because somebody's transposing, don't mean you have to. Just because they stopped at learning certain chords, don't mean you have to. Just because they don't understand um, certain things that they're doing, doesn't mean you have to not understand that. Understand it and take it to the next level. Every generation takes things to the next level. Take that to the next level, man. So with that being said, like I hope y'all enjoyed everything. I'll be coming out with more of these, and until next time, peace out.